future.
No, just
So, Novocaine, you did 2 gigs just for half term. One of them was internal, the other one external. The point I've been trying to get across to all the bands so far, the underlying, or not even underlining theme, the main theme is looking at the songwriting being one aspect, the parts in which you play and being able to play and execute those parts to a really high standard that obviously complement that song. Yeah. The third thing though is the stage movement and the way in which you translate that material live. Yeah. 3 big things. All of you are fully aware the fact that the way in which you'll probably mostly make music in the music industry will be through live performing. Therefore, if you have a reputation as a great live band, people will want to see you. If it's exciting, there's a lot of energy or whatever, that will be the difference, especially looking at your image and identity will set you aside from the next band who might have as good as songs. Mind you, after hearing that one, I doubt it. But with regard to, there may be lots of comparisons between other bands that are out there, but it may be those other elements which are the icing on the cake, as it were. I'll give you a fact. At the O2, Jake Pell, who's the marketing manager there, came up to me. I was making notes at the time, watching the band Shortwave, who all of you have seen. Exactly what he said to me were, Nick, I'm really sorry to disturb you, I can see you're busy, but I just want to say how great these bands are that you're putting on tonight. He went on to exclaim how, and it was kind of in this order, that he said the songs are great, and he said their musicianship is really top notch, and they look and move, their sense of image and movement, he said they just look like pro bands. And he especially liked Shortwave, I think the type of music they played, and they put in a great performance. And I think looking at the bands that have come and gone, I see you guys perhaps drawing comparisons with the likes of Soul Funk, who were very popular, certainly Shortwave as well. There's not not a million miles away, and the number of kind of personnel in your band as well, and the musician kind of breakdown, if you like, with the keys, the guitar, bass, drums, vocals, etc., etc. So knowing that, I turned around to him and said, thank you very much, that he just confirmed, kind of rubber stamped what we try and achieve at college. And he said to me that, he said, I cannot tell the difference between a lot of these college bands and the pro bands who are on the circuit touring. There's no difference. And that I remember very, very well. I had great satisfaction telling the students that as well. But I want to double the amount of time I spent with regard to the stage movement and the whole kind of show kind of strategy and setup than I did with those guys. So what I'm suggesting is I want you guys to get up on that stage, ideally weekly. The reason I want you to do it, when you think about it in this environment, it's horribly lit, actually. It's sort of too well lit. But you're in a position where you get to see each other. I wouldn't say it's a luxury position, but you get to be able to look over quite easily, have eye contact, look at your fretboard as you're playing, the keys, you can clearly see them, each of those drums, etc., etc. The other thing, the big consideration will be when you go out on the stage area, often it's very dark. Straight away, Jack is at the back. He's looking at the back of your head as opposed to having eye contact with you. Straight away, from a stage position, is very different. Kira perhaps will be either... Kiva. I've just been to see Kira, that's what it is. I'm really sorry about that. But, you're Scottish. No, I'm sorry. Talk about digging a massive hole. You have a keyboard in front of you on occasion, but we've worked on those sort of strategies about you moving away from it, because clearly you are doing a lot of dual vocal stuff and sharing, yeah? But where you're positioned, you may not be able to see Will. You may not be able to have that same eye contact, and then we factor monitoring into the equation, where it's like, yeah, but I couldn't hear Will started that track and I couldn't quite hear him. When it comes down to rehearsing, I want you to be on such a point where you are programmed completely, whatever eventuality it is, whether you can hear someone or not, you know you're playing the right part. You will know when to come in because Jack will be bossing it at the back. You've got a really good vantage point, Jack, even though you might feel you're being hidden by cymbals and you've got then a lot of these guys moving in front of you. But the wonderful thing you can do is sit at the back and look at the audience reaction to see what the band are doing to make them react. And this is the whole name of the game. This is the kind of thing that I really like to look at from the that simple psychology of, if you guys are looking like you're having a great time, the audience will want to have a great time too. The audience then will remember having a great time. They want to come back. They tell their friends what a great band. You build up your fan base, you get great gigs, etc., etc., and there's a great big happy ending. But if you build into the stage not just not being able to hear yourselves that effectively, it could be poor monitoring. You then bring in the lights, you bring in the darkness, etc., etc. Having your music rehearsed to a really high standard will be really beneficial. But if you then bring in the movement and you rehearse your movement, it's not going to be, oh, well, we've got a gig coming up and now Nick's going to say he wants me to do this and I feel really uncomfortable. What it will be that you rehearse and you factor that in to part of your strategizing, and you go on stage and it's like, oh, I don't have to think about this now. I just do that. I walk from this point to that point throughout verse 1, then I step forward and I do this, raise my headstock on this part of the track or whatever it might be. There will be things that you build into that performance and you're going to get over the awkwardness. I know some of you in the room might be, oh yeah, but I want to sing and play and do this, but I'm uncomfortable being in front of an audience. The more you do it, you just kind of get over that. And what I'm suggesting is that on a regular basis, as I say, at least weekly, we get you out on the stage and we work on this kind of strategizing. And this will be a massive difference between you guys. You've already confirmed you've got great songwriting ability. I know you've had some friction, there's been sort of issues with regard to whether you've had the same amount of time as the other bands to work on stuff, etc., etc., due to personnel scenarios. But let's make sure, and I want to lay down a gauntlet here to say to you, when you do your 15 minutes in the last week in November, how about not doing 2 of the songs you've already done?
That's a good idea.
But having other ones written, yeah, and like resting them is a little bit like, I don't know, a good football team resting your star striker and then bring them out to score in the cup final. It's very much, you will be ticking and hitting the criteria, as it were, by doing 15 minutes, but there could be a tendency for you to become complacent and think, you've already got 2 great tracks, you've got a third one now which you've just shown me, which is sounding fantastic. You're going to have them, you've already played, you've done a couple of gigs with those other ones, why keep playing them? You might be in bad habits as well, where you've been playing them sitting down. I know matey girl there with the bass keeps moaning that it's heavy and etc., etc. But let's work on a strategy here where you start factoring in those movements, and I can guarantee you, when you get the movement on point, when you're writing new material, you're already going to be thinking, how am I going to move on that passage of the track? It will just become part of the fabric, yeah? You can rest those couple of tracks, perhaps have new ones in and start building them in, and the audience in here will be, wow, it's that track again, fantastic, yeah, I want to hear that one. And you get to a point then, when you do the gig, you've probably got, I mean, what is it, half an hour, 40 minutes? I always tell the students it's an hour on stage, just so you're not short. But how about you have an hour's worth of material, but you're only assessed on half an hour of it? We've already got less bands than we had previous years. We've got more stage time to play with. Why not? Why not pick your set, have twice as much material, but go, okay, we reckon the audience that are coming along tonight, they're going to love these tracks. The other ones we'll have on our EP. It'll be like, if you want to hear more from us, there's our EP. We haven't played any of them tonight. We've never had a band do that, but I think you guys are capable of doing it. And everybody will be, blimey, that was great, okay, and they're logging on and they're downloading your stuff or whatever, or going to buy and getting your merchandise.
So want to come to more gigs as well.
They definitely leave them wanting more, definitely. So just to, obviously I praise you guys up. Rhythmically, what you're doing is really on point. You're really thinking about the parts. Layla, your bass playing, fantastic. I'm really loving what you do. You might think, yeah, but I'm only doing this. But on the bass, it's like what you don't play. Not overplaying, just playing what it really needs. It's fitting in really well. Textural stuff going on with the guitar, great stuff. The keys, and that sounded lovely. That new intro, that's a showpiece, isn't it already? Vocally, really, really strong as well with you guys. 2-3 lead singers even within the band, so there's so much that you can offer. But let's just get the stage movement stuff on point, and you guys kind of recognizing that it is an important part of it. A lot of people talk about the band, I don't know, numerous bands that we've had at college. Often the bands that have created the most buzz have definitely had a great stage performance as well. And it doesn't have to be swinging from chandeliers. It can just be that they're really cool to watch. They just got something about them, yeah? And I'm seeing you guys definitely hitting that criteria. So
I think about doing like little atmospheric interludes between songs.
Exactly, all of those things, definitely. I mean, a thing for performers, and I mean, I have this happen so many times. As a vocalist, you want to be able to hydrate, you want to be able to take some fluid on, but you're the person having to introduce the next song, and you look around and maybe the guitarist is changing guitar or whatever. The drummer, I mean, the amount of occasions I've had where the drummer's been counting in, it's like I'm just putting my drink down, and there's a lot of pressure sometimes to how you accommodate all the different parts within a set, but having those sort of things, I mean, that worked great, Kiva, when you did the interlude track. I remember at SAE, great piece of music, and it could be that point that may give the vocalist a break. It could be a really nice intro that you're able to just discreetly take a drink because it's starting with guitar or whatever it might be. So factor those sort of things into a performance, and then you look at your tech spec. Honestly, you're looking at it in a completely different way then, because it will be, we want dry ice on, we want the light on that person because they're starting this track. That you're then going to have this whole list of stuff, and it won't be an inconvenience for who's doing the sound and lighting, trust me, because a lot of people that are doing those jobs, they want a bit of a challenge. I know I definitely do. Done the sound on plenty of occasions, and I want to be given as many sort of heads up and instructions as possible, really, because then if you do that, the band are going to be really happy with the performance or service you provide. So yeah, lots of considerations, but honestly guys, the feedback I get, I had Rowan in, you were the first name that was mentioned. Whitney has just been in, wow, these guys are great. So there's so much potential, but I think ironing out how you work with things, and Will, your ears may have been burning, but with Shaky Jake, I've suggested to them, because they don't do maths or English, that they work out a strategy where they can rehearse perhaps at another time, maybe even if it's one session a week, that you're able to dedicate 100% of the time to this and then 100% to them. It means you compromising yourself a little bit, but hey,
That's
You
what I
know?
did on the first year.
You're into rock and roll, aren't you? You want to be here, and if you're making the journey
I was in
here
Black Temple for a
anyway,
bit, so
it's a case of like having a full day.
Yeah.
So I think that
Yeah,
could
shows
work
better.
better. And I know you've had a bit of a rocky sort of path. There's been sort of issues with the band, but I just think your potential, and if you recognise those, and sometimes just having those awkward discussions at the very start can mean that it's a very lovely sort of long future and less sort of troublesome kind of journey through, if you like. So, but thanks very much, guys.